The scent of simmering tomato sauce usually filled the Miller kitchen on a Saturday, a comforting aroma that meant Eleanor, the mother, was making her famous lasagna. But this particular Saturday, there was an unusual buzz in the air, a different kind of warmth radiating from the small, slightly chipped television set in the living room. Lily, aged 11, was practically glued to the screen, her eyes wide with wonder as a commercial for the new science fiction epic, Starbound Odyssey, played. Spaceships soared across the cosmos. Strange aliens blinked with wise eyes, and a lone hero stood against a shimmering galaxy. "Oh, Mom, Dad, isn't it incredible?" Lily breathed, turning to face her parents, who were both wrestling with a stubborn kitchen drawer trying to fix a wobbly handle. Arthur, her father, grunted in agreement, his brow furrowed in concentration. Eleanor, wiping her hands on a dish towel, smiled fondly at her daughter. "It looks very exciting, sweetheart," Eleanor said, though her gaze flickered briefly to the calendar hanging by the fridge. Movie tickets for a family of 4 weren't a small expense, especially not with the rising cost of, well, everything. Arthur worked long hours at the auto repair shop, and Eleanor took on piecemeal sewing jobs from home. But every dollar had a purpose. Often, multiple purposes. 7-year-old Tom, Lily's younger brother, suddenly burst into the living room, a homemade cape flapping behind him. He'd fastened it from one of his father's old shirts and a safety pin. "Can we go? Can we go? I want to see the space battles," he yelled, mimicking laser sounds with his mouth. Arthur finally got the drawer handle tightened. He straightened up, rubbing his lower back. "Hold on there, Rocket Man," he chuckled, ruffling Tom's hair. "Movies cost money, you know, and we just had to replace the washing machine motor." A familiar sigh escaped Lily. She knew the drill. It wasn't that their parents didn't want to give them things. It was just that money was always tight. The Millers weren't poor, not really, but they lived paycheck to paycheck, making every penny stretch. Luxuries like a family trip to the cinema were rare, reserved for very special occasions, or when they managed to squirrel away a little extra. "But Starbound Odyssey is only out for a limited time," Lily protested. "It's supposed to be the best movie of the year. Everyone at school is talking about it." Eleanor walked over and sat beside Lily on the worn sofa, pulling her close. "I know, sweetie. And your father and I want to see it too. It's just a bit much all at once. What if we make a plan?" Arthur joined them, settling onto the armrest. "A plan sounds good. How about this? We each contribute a little bit of our spare change, and if we manage to save up enough by next month, we go. And not just go, we go all out. Popcorn, sodas, the works. A proper big family movie night. Especially the giant bucket of popcorn." Eleanor confirmed with a wink. Lily's spirits lifted. A plan. That was better than a flat no. She started picturing it. The darkened theater. The hush before the movie started. The shared gasps and laughter with her family. It wasn't just about the movie. It was about the experience. Chance to escape, even if just for a few hours from the everyday worries and into a world of adventure together. "Okay," Lily said, a determined glint in her eyes. "I'll help Mom with her sewing, and I'll walk Mrs. Henderson's dog an extra day a week." Tom puffed out his chest. "I'll clean my room every day without being told. And I'll help Dad with the car stuff, even if it's greasy." Arthur and Eleanor exchanged a look. A mixture of amusement and heartfelt warmth. Their kids were good kids. They understood, and they valued these small dreams as much as their parents did. "All right then," Arthur declared, clapping his hands together. "It's a deal. Operation Starbound Odyssey is officially a go." Over the next few weeks, the Miller household buzzed with purpose. Lily diligently helped Eleanor, learning how to thread a needle with surprising dexterity and press seams perfectly. She even managed to save a few dollars from her dog walking gigs. Tom, surprisingly, kept his room tidier than it had ever been, and even tried to help Arthur in the garage, mostly by handing him tools and asking a million questions. but it was help nonetheless. Eleanor found herself taking on an extra dress alteration here, a few mended shirts there. Arthur, meanwhile, started stashing away $5 bills from odd jobs he picked up after his regular shifts. The jar on the kitchen counter, labeled Starbound Fund, slowly but surely began to fill with coins and crumpled bills. Each clink was a tiny victory, a step closer to their grand cinematic adventure. Lily would often peek into the jar, her heart swelling with anticipation. This movie wasn't just a movie anymore. It was a testament to their family's teamwork, a symbol of their shared effort and dreams. As the promised date, the first Saturday of next month, drew closer, the excitement became almost unbearable. Lily and Tom would whisper about the plot twists they expected, the characters they wanted to see. Eleanor and Arthur would smile watching their children's enthusiasm. It wasn't just about affording the tickets anymore. It was about creating a memory, a special moment in time for their family. They knew, deep down, that these were the moments that truly mattered. The ones they'd look back on years later. They had saved enough, barely, but enough. The night before, Eleanor laid out their cinema clothes. Their best, but still comfortable outfits. Arthur checked the car tires, making sure everything was perfect for the short drive to the Grand Majestic Cinema. Lily and Tom were practically vibrating with excitement, promising to go to bed early so they'd be fresh for their big day. The dream of Starbound Odyssey was finally within their grasp. They had no idea just how truly grand their odyssey was about to become. Saturday dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a grand adventure. Lily woke up before her alarm, a rare feat, her heart thrumming with anticipation. Tom was already up, bouncing on his bed, trying to convince his stuffed bear Barnaby that space travel was absolutely safe. "Mom, Dad, is it time yet?" Tom yelled from his bedroom, a question he'd been asking every 10 minutes since sunrise. Eleanor chuckled as she braided Lily's hair. "Almost, sweetie. Breakfast first. You need fuel for your space mission." They ate quickly, a celebratory breakfast of pancakes with syrup. Even though it was a slight deviation from their usual oatmeal, every detail today felt special. When they finally piled into their old sedan, the air inside was thick with excitement. The Grand Majestic Cinema was a landmark in their small town, an ornate building with a towering marquee that always seemed to hum with the promise of magic. Today it felt even more majestic. As they approached the cinema, however, a ripple of unease spread through Eleanor. The street was unusually crowded, lines snaked out from the box office. Not just one, but multiple lines stretching almost to the corner. A buzzing murmur of voices, a cacophony of children's laughter and adult chatter filled the air. "Wow!" Arthur whistled, trying to find a parking spot. Looks like everyone had the same idea about Starbound Odyssey. Lily's smile faltered slightly. She hadn't expected such a crowd. She imagined the packed theater, the fight for good seats, the jostling for popcorn. Her perfect vision of a serene family movie night began to fray at the edges. They finally found a spot a few blocks away and began the walk hand in hand. The closer they got, the more chaotic it seemed. People were already spilling out of earlier showings, discussing the movie loudly. Tom, usually fearless, clung a little tighter to Eleanor's hand, overwhelmed by the sheer number of people. When they finally reached the box office, a harried-looking teenager behind the counter announced, "Next showing of Starbound Odyssey is completely sold out. We still have tickets." For the 7 p.m. was too late for Tom. He'd be exhausted, cranky, and they had specifically saved for this afternoon show. Lily's face mirrored her disappointment, her eyes clouded over. Arthur put an arm around Eleanor, his own shoulders slumping. "All that saving, all that planning. For this, we could try another cinema." Arthur offered, but he knew the nearest one was a half-hour drive and probably just as busy. "No, Dad, it's okay," Lily said, trying to sound brave, but her voice was small. She saw the tired lines on her parents' faces, the effort they had made. She didn't want to add to their burden. "Maybe we can just go home and watch one of our old movies. The Great Escape is still good." It was a generous offer, but Eleanor and Arthur knew how much this movie had meant to her. The joy had drained out of the day. Unbeknownst to the Miller family, a very different kind of person was experiencing his own version of a chaotic Saturday just a few blocks away. Elvis Presley was in town recording some new songs at a local studio. He had decided, on a rare whim, to try and take a walk. Just a simple, anonymous stroll, something he craved deeply, but rarely achieved. Dressed in a fedora, dark sunglasses, and a casual jacket, he hoped to blend in. It was, of course, a futile hope. Even with the disguise, his unmistakable presence, the way he carried himself, the subtle swagger drew eyes. Soon whispers started, then pointing, then a few brave fans approached. Within minutes, a small crowd began to gather. Not yet a full-blown mob, but enough to make his simple walk impossible. Elvis sighed, a familiar wave of weariness washing over him. He loved his fans, truly. He did. But sometimes, just sometimes, he wished he could be just a regular man, able to enjoy the simple pleasures of life, without causing a frenzy. He spotted the Grand Majestic Cinema in the distance, its bright marquee a beacon of normalcy. He considered going inside, maybe catching a quiet matinee, but he knew that would be even worse. He'd be mobbed in minutes. The thought of a dark, quiet theater, just him and a good movie, felt like an impossible dream. As he turned to head back towards his car, making a discreet exit, his gaze swept over the disappointed faces gathered around the box office. His eyes landed on the small family, a mother, a father, and 2 children. He saw the little girl, her bright eyes suddenly dull with sadness, the boy clinging to his mother, the slump in the father's shoulders. He overheard a snippet of their conversation, something about a sold-out show and disappointment. He recognized that look of a dream deferred, of a simple pleasure just out of reach. It wasn't the kind of disappointment born of fame or fortune, but the raw, vulnerable disappointment of a child, and the quiet despair of parents who tried so hard, but still couldn't quite give their kids everything. A strange idea, impulsive and grand, began to form in Elvis's mind. He was tired of the crowds. Yes, but he also missed something deeper. He missed the genuine, uncomplicated joy of everyday people, something he rarely got to witness anymore, buried under layers of fame and adoration. He saw it in that little girl's face, even through her sadness. He got into his car. The windows tinted a barrier between him and the outside world. His security detail, a couple of burly men, were already on alert. "Charlie," Elvis said, his voice low. "I want you to make a few calls for me." Charlie, his longtime head of security, raised an eyebrow. "Yes, boss? That cinema?" Elvis nodded towards the Grand Majestic. "And specifically that movie, Starbound Odyssey. I want to know when the next empty slot is, and I want to book it, all of it." Charlie blinked, taken aback. "The whole theater, boss? For who?" Elvis paused, his eyes still on the Grand Majestic, imagining the small family's disappointed faces. "For someone who deserves a little magic." He leaned back in his seat, a new energy buzzing within him. This wasn't about escaping the crowds. It was about creating a moment, a simple, pure moment for someone else. And maybe, just maybe, he could watch it unfold from a distance unseen and feel a little bit of that magic himself. Back in the quiet luxury of his hotel suite, Elvis paced. The room was spacious, opulent even, with plush carpets and panoramic city views, yet it felt strangely sterile, empty. The silence was punctuated only by the distant hum of city traffic and the occasional ring of the phone from his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, who was perpetually trying to schedule his next big thing. He had left the cinema scene quickly, the small crowd growing just as he pulled away. The anonymity he craved was a fleeting phantom, always just out of reach. But the image of the Miller family lingered in his mind. The little girl's crestfallen face, the hopeful way the boy had clung to his mother, the quiet decor deep within him. Elvis had grown up in poverty himself. He remembered what it was like to want something simple, something that most people took for granted, and to not be able to have it. He remembered the sting of disappointment and the lengths his own parents had gone to try and bring a little joy into his life. Now he had more money than he could ever spend, more fame than any man could realistically handle. And yet he often felt a profound disconnect from the very things he remembered cherishing as a boy. Simplicity, genuine connection, uncomplicated happiness. He thought of the hundreds of fans who screamed his name, who idolized him. Their affection was overwhelming, sometimes suffocating. He gave them music, performances, a larger-than-life persona, but what about just a simple human gesture? Something not for the cameras, not for the headlines, but just because the idea that had sparked at the cinema grew taking root. He wanted to give that family their movie night. Not just a ticket to a later show, but a truly special experience. He wanted to wipe away that disappointment and replace it with wonder. He wanted them to have the kind of memory that lasted a lifetime. The kind that made you believe in magic, even if you never knew where it truly came from. He picked up the phone. "Charlie, is that you?" "That's right. The Grand Majestic. Starbound Odyssey. What's the situation?" "Well, boss, it's popular. They're pretty booked solid. Best they can offer is a late-night showing in their smallest screening room tomorrow, or a weekday afternoon next week. For a private booking, sir, would be very expensive. We're talking thousands, just to reserve one of their larger theaters for a single showing." Elvis waved a dismissive hand, even though Charlie couldn't see it. Money was no object. "Expensive is fine. Which is the best theater they have? The biggest screen, the best sound system?" Charlie paused, probably consulting with the cinema manager on the other end of his own line. "They have their grand theater screen, boss, seats 300, state-of-the-art projection, surround sound. It's usually reserved for premieres. It's free this Tuesday afternoon if you want it. And they'd need payment." That was perfect. Not too long for the family to wait, but enough time for the details to be arranged. "Book it," Elvis said, his voice firm, a newfound excitement bubbling in his chest. "Book the Grand Theater for Starbound Odyssey this Tuesday afternoon. And I want the best snacks. They have popcorn, candy, drinks all complimentary, and no press, no fanfare. This is to be kept completely under wraps." "Understood, boss. But who is this for exactly? And how will they know?" That was the tricky part. He couldn't just knock on their door and say, "Hi, I'm Elvis. I bought you a movie theater." That would cause a frenzy, spoil the magic. He wanted them to feel special, not overwhelmed by his fame. "We need to find them," Elvis mused, tapping his finger against his chin. "That family from the box office. A mother, a father, a girl about 10 or 11, and a younger boy, maybe 7 or 8. Probably local. Maybe the cinema staff noticed them too." Charlie was already on it. "I'll have someone discreetly check with the box office attendant. See if they remember anyone fitting that description. If they bought tickets for a later show or had a reservation." "No," Elvis said, a new thought forming. "They didn't buy tickets. They were leaving looking disappointed. They wouldn't have a reservation. This has to be a complete surprise. What if we frame it as a community appreciation gesture, a random drawing from local residents, something that makes it feel earned? Not just a handout." Charlie considered this. "That could work, boss. A special invitation. We'd have to figure out how to deliver it, and how to ensure it gets to the right family without attracting attention." "Leave that to me," Elvis said, a plan starting to solidify in his mind. "We'll send it as a formal invitation from the cinema itself, as if they were randomly selected, no mention of me. Just a special private showing for one lucky family, and we make sure the cinema manager understands the extreme importance of discretion." He hung up, feeling a lightness he hadn't felt in days. The Grand Majestic, the biggest screen, the entire theater to themselves for a family who truly deserved it. It was a small gesture in the grand scheme of his life, but it felt profoundly significant. It was a chance to use his immense resources, not for another gold record or a new Cadillac, but for something far more valuable, a moment of pure, unadulterated joy for people who had earned it through their own hard work and perseverance. He smiled. This was going to be better than any concert. The phone at the Grand Majestic Cinema's manager's desk rang shrilly. Mr. Henderson, a portly man with a perpetually stressed expression, picked it up, expecting another complaint about sticky floors or faulty air conditioning. Grand Majestic Henderson speaking, he mumbled into the receiver. Mr. Henderson, this is Charlie Hodge, calling on behalf of Mr. Presley. Mesley, Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll? In a small-town cinema, he tried to sound calm. Presley, as in Elvis Presley. The one and only, Charlie confirmed, a hint of amusement in his voice. Mr. Presley has a rather unusual request. He wishes to book your Grand Theater screen for a private showing this coming Tuesday afternoon, say 3 p.m., for the film Starbound Odyssey. Henderson's mind reeled. A private showing for Mr. Presley himself. He imagined Elvis, in his full sequin glory, taking up an entire theater, just for himself, maybe a few close friends. It was extravagant. But then, it was Elvis. Not precisely. He wishes to book it for a specific family, a family he observed at your box office this past Saturday, looking rather to spormox a row. He wants to buy out the whole theater for a random family. That's precisely it. Mr. Presley is a generous man. He, anonymously. Complete discretion is paramount, Mr. Henderson. Absolutely no media, no fanfare. The family is not to know who is behind this. They are to be informed that they have won a spanful community appreciation. Viewing. Selected at random. Mr. Henderson crippled notes. What about the cost, sir? For the Grand Theater on a Tuesday, plus all the concessions they might want, it would be substantial. Money is not an issue, Charlie said, his voice firm. We will transfer the full amount, plus a generous gratuity for your staff. Within the hour, Mr. Presley's only requirement is Saturday. Yes. Old Mrs. Gable was working the afternoon shift. She's got a memory like an elephant. I'll ask her, and if we identify them, how do we reach them without it seeming suspicious? We'll provide you with a carefully worded letter officially from the Grand Majestic. Inviting them, you can send it by registered mail or have a discreet messenger deliver it. It needs to feel legitimate, a genuine win. Charlie then outlined the specifics. A list of every possible concession item to be made available, extra comfortable seating prepared, the projection booth ready, with the best print of the film. When Charlie finally hung up, Mr. Henderson sat back in his chair, breathing heavily. He had dealt with celebrity requests before, but never anything like this. This wasn't about ego or publicity. It was about pure, unadulterated kindness. And it was going to be the most exciting, nerve-wracking secret he'd ever kept. He immediately called Mrs. Gable. Mildred, do you remember a family with 2 children, a girl and a boy, who looked particularly disappointed about Starbound Odyssey selling out on Saturday? Mrs. Gable, bless her, did. I remember them because they're such a nice, quiet family. Always polite. Never caused trouble. They asked about the earlier show. Specifically. Said they'd been saving up. Henderson felt a surge. Over the next day, the Grand Majestic hummed with a different kind of energy. Henderson personally oversaw the preparation of the Grand Theater. The seats were vacuumed again, the velvet curtains dusted, the projection equipment double-checked. The concession stand was stocked to the brim with every treat imaginable. All paid for, it felt less like preparing for a regular showing and more like setting the stage for a magical performance. A private show for the most important audience of all. Charlie Hodge sent over the official-looking letter typed on Grand Majestic letterhead. It stated that the Miller family had been randomly selected for a special complimentary private viewing experience of Starbound Odyssey on Tuesday at 3 p.m. in the Grand Theater as a gesture of community appreciation. It even included a phone number to confirm their attendance. It was perfectly worded, sounding official yet inviting. Mr. Henderson arranged for a trusted, discreet member of his staff, a quiet, elderly woman named Martha, to deliver the letter by hand to the Miller residence, just to ensure it got there without delay or postal mishaps. He didn't want any chance of it going astray. As Tuesday afternoon approached, Mr. Henderson found himself feeling a strange mix of nerves and excitement. He'd never been part of something quite like this. He imagined the family's faces when they realized the entire theater was just for them. It was a good feeling, a secret kindness that felt more rewarding than any box office record. And he knew deep down that this was the kind of story that would be whispered in the town for years. Even if the source of its magic remained a mystery, he just hoped the Millers would accept the invitation. The Miller household had returned to its usual rhythm after the Saturday disappointment. Lily still looked a little wistful whenever she saw a Starbound Odyssey poster, and Tom occasionally made sad spaceship noises, but they had mostly accepted that their big movie night wasn't going to happen. The Starbound fund jar sat on the counter, still mostly full, a quiet reminder of their dashed hopes. Eleanor and Arthur, however, quietly discussed how they might use the saved money for a different, more affordable treat for the kids, maybe a trip to the local ice cream parlor, or new books. It was Monday afternoon when the doorbell rang. Eleanor was in the middle of mending a dress, and Arthur was still at work. Lily and Tom were doing their homework at the kitchen table, their usual squabbles about crayons already underway. Eleanor answered the door to find a pleasant-faced elderly woman standing on her porch, holding a large, thick envelope. The woman smiled warmly. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Miller. My name is Martha. I'm from the Grand Majestic Cinema. I have a special delivery for your family." Eleanor, slightly confused, took the envelope. It was heavy, made of nice paper, and had the elegant Grand Majestic Cinema logo embossed on it. "Oh, thank you," she said, wondering what it could be. "Maybe a survey, a promotional flyer for a new movie." Martha simply nodded and walked away, leaving Eleanor on the porch holding the intriguing envelope. Back inside, Eleanor carefully opened it. Inside was a crisp, beautifully printed letter, the Grand Majestic Cinema. "It is with immense pleasure that the Grand Majestic Cinema extends a very special invitation to the Miller family of Elm Street. As a gesture of our deep appreciation for the continued support of our valued patrons, and as part of our ongoing community outreach program, your family has been randomly selected to receive a truly unique cinematic experience. We invite the Miller family to a private complimentary showing of the acclaimed new release, Starbound Odyssey, in our prestigious Grand Theater. Date, Tuesday, but current date, 2 days, at 3 p.m., location, Grand Majestic Cinema, Grand Theater. This exclusive viewing will be for your family, only ensuring a comfortable and memorable experience. All concessions, popcorn, drinks, candies will be provided free of charge during your visit. Please RSVP by calling Mr. Henderson, our cinema manager, at your earliest convenience to confirm your attendance. We eagerly await the opportunity to host you. Sincerely, the management of the Grand Majestic Cinema." Eleanor read the letter once, then twice, her brow furrowed in disbelief. A private showing for them and Starbound Odyssey. The movie they had just missed out on. It sounded too good to be true. "Mom, what is it?" Lily asked, sensing her mother's astonishment. Eleanor handed them the letter, her hands trembling slightly. As Lily read it aloud, her voice growing increasingly excited, Tom's eyes went wide. Tom piped up, puffing out his chest. Eleanor laughed. A nervous, disbelieving sound. It just didn't make sense. Randomly selected a private showing for a family like theirs, who always had to pinch pennies. Practical mind immediately went to the possibility of a scam. Was it some kind of elaborate marketing trick? Would they get there and find a catch? When Arthur came home, tired from his shift, Eleanor immediately presented him with the letter. He read it, then reread it, his initial reaction mirroring hers. "A private showing?" Arthur scratched his head. "That's extraordinary and completely free, including concessions." "That's what it says," Eleanor confirmed. "But who would do this?" And why us? It feels too much like a dream. Lily, however, was already brimming with renewed hope. But it's from the cinema, Dad. It's on their letterhead, and it says Grand Theater. That's the biggest one. Arthur picked up the phone. There's only one way to find out if it's real. I'll call Mr. Henderson. He dialed the number provided in the letter. After a couple of rings, a somewhat flustered but perfectly polite Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, this is Arthur Miller. My family just received an invitation for a private movie showing. Arthur asked, trying to keep his voice steady, half expecting to be told it was a mistake. Mr. Miller. Yes, we're so delighted you received it, Mr. Henderson exclaimed, sounding genuinely enthusiastic. Yes, the invitation is entirely legitimate. Your family has been selected to participate in this newly restored the Starbound. As Arthur hung up, a joyous whoop erupted from Lily and Tom. They hugged each other, jumping up and down. Eleanor felt tears prickling her eyes. It was a miracle. A genuine, inexplicable miracle. After the disappointment, this felt like the universe giving them a giant, unexpected hug. The thought of who might be behind such a generous, anonymous act crossed their minds, but they quickly dismissed it. It was too fantastical to imagine it was anyone truly famous. It had to be a quiet benefactor, someone from the community who just wanted to spread a little happiness. They decided not to question it too deeply. Some gifts, they reasoned, were best accepted with pure gratitude. As they got ready for bed that night, the excitement in the Miller household was electric. Tomorrow they weren't just going to the movies, they were going to their movie. Private adventure, a dream come true, all thanks to a mysterious invitation and an unknown, incredibly kind stranger. It felt like the beginning of an incredible, heartwarming story, and they were the main characters. Tuesday afternoon arrived bright and clear, echoing the family's soaring spirits. The Miller family, dressed in their best but comfortable clothes. Lily wore a pretty blue dress, and Tom had insisted on wearing his new plaid shirt. Eleanor and Arthur wore their Sunday best outfits. A quiet nod to the specialness of the occasion. The old sedan hummed along, but this time the tension in the air wasn't anxiety but pure, joyful anticipation. Are you sure we're going to be the only ones there? Tom asked for the 10th time from the back seat, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. That's what the letter said, buddy, Arthur replied, a smile playing on his lips. He still couldn't quite believe it himself. As they pulled into the Grand Majestic Cinema's parking lot, a strange quiet settled over them. Unlike Saturday, the lot was nearly empty. Only a handful of cars were scattered across the vast expanse. The marquee still glowed, but it seemed to whisper secrets rather than shout them. Eleanor felt a nervous flutter in her stomach. So empty, she murmured, clutching Arthur's arm slightly. They walked towards the entrance, the grand doors looking imposing in the unusual silence. A young man dressed in a smart uniform stood just inside the lobby. He approached them with a welcoming yet discreet smile. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. And these must be Lily and Tom? He asked, his voice low and respectful. Yes, that's us, Arthur confirmed, feeling a bit self-conscious. Being greeted by name felt incredibly formal. Welcome to the Grand Majestic. My name is Alex. Mr. Henderson asked me to personally escort you to your showing right this way. Please, Alex gestured towards a wide hallway. The lobby itself was almost deserted. No lines at a concession stand, no throngs of people jostling for tickets. It felt strangely intimate, almost reverent. Lily and Tom exchanged wide-eyed glances, their expressions a mix of confusion and wonder. This was nothing like their previous cinema experiences. Alex led them past the various smaller screens, past the bustling arcade area, which was now quiet, and down a grander carpeted corridor. He paused before a massive set of double doors. Above it, a golden plaque read, "The Grand Theater." "This way, please," Alex said, pushing open the heavy doors with a flourish. As the doors swung inward, a wave of cool, air-conditioned air washed over them. The cavernous theater stretched before them, a sea of plush red velvet seats. Eleanor stared, her eyes wide, tears starting to well up. It was real, more real than she had imagined. Arthur stood beside her, a look of pure awe on his face. The sheer scale of the gesture was overwhelming. "You can sit anywhere you like," Alex announced, his voice echoing slightly in the vast space. "And please feel free to make yourselves comfortable. If you need anything at all during the film, simply press the call button on the armrest, and a member of our staff will assist you." He then gestured towards a perfectly arranged table just inside the theater doors. "And your complimentary concessions are ready, whenever you are. Freshly popped popcorn, a selection of candies, and your choice of beverages, all yours." Lily, still in shock, slowly walked forward, almost tiptoeing into the sound theater. She looked back at her parents, her face a mixture of disbelief and pure, unadulterated joy. "Mom, Dad, it's just us." Arthur put an arm around Eleanor, squeezing her shoulder. "It certainly is, honey." They chose seats in the very center, about halfway up the prime viewing location. Lily and Tom practically dove into the soft reclining seats, giggling. The entire row was theirs, then the entire section, then the entire theater. It was like stepping into their own private dream, Alex confirmed. They were settled, then quietly excused himself, closing the doors behind him with a soft click, leaving them utterly alone in the magnificent space. The silence stretched, broken only by the rustle of Lily adjusting in her seat, and Tom's excited whispers. Then the lights slowly began to dim, pulling them deeper into the sense of an unfolding wonder. The screen brightened, the familiar studio logos appearing larger and more vibrant than they had ever seen them. This wasn't just a movie night. This was an experience beyond anything they could have ever imagined. It was magical, and the most beautiful part was they still had no idea who had spun this incredible spell for them. They only knew that someone, somewhere, had chosen them for a kindness so profound. It was almost unbelievable. Grand Theater plunged into darkness save for the soft glow from the massive screen. The opening credits of Starbound Odyssey began to roll, the majestic orchestral music swelling through the state-of-the-art sound system. It vibrated through their seats, making the very air feel alive. Lily leaned back, completely engrossed. She wasn't just watching a movie, she was in it. The colors were more vibrant, the details sharper, the sound richer than anything she'd ever experienced in a cinema before. Every creak of a spaceship hull, every whisper of alien wind, every blast of a laser felt incredibly real. Tom, usually fidgety, sat remarkably still, his mouth slightly agape. He pointed at the screen during a particularly exciting space battle. "Look, Mom, the big one. It's doing a barrel roll." His voice, usually loud, was hushed, almost reverent in the vast quiet of the theater. Eleanor and Arthur sat side by side, their hands intertwined. They kept exchanging glances, smiles playing on their lips. They watched their children, completely lost in the magic, and it filled their hearts with an overwhelming sense of joy and gratitude. There were no noisy teenagers talking on their phones, no sticky-fingered kids kicking the back of their seats, no strangers coughing loudly or unwrapping candy with infuriating slowness. It was just them, a perfect, uninterrupted bubble of cinematic bliss. "This is amazing," Eleanor whispered to Arthur, her voice thick with emotion. Arthur squeezed her hand. "More than amazing, honey. It's a dream." They got up freely to refill their popcorn and drinks, which were replenished by an unseen staff member who quietly appeared and disappeared from a side door like a benevolent ghost. Popcorn was fresh, hot, and buttered exactly to their liking. The sodas were perfectly chilled. Lily even managed to convince Eleanor to let her have an extra bag of sour gummy worms, a rare indulgence. They talked during the quieter scenes, sharing observations, making predictions. Tom asked questions, and Lily, feeling like an expert, patiently explained the lore of the Starbound universe. It was a shared experience, not just a passive viewing. They were truly together. During one particularly tense moment, when the hero was cornered by an alien beast, Lily instinctively clutched Arthur's arm, burying her face in his side. Tom squeaked, burrowing into Eleanor. They laughed afterward, the easy, comfortable laughter of family in their own private space. Elvis, from his hidden vantage point in the projection booth, watched them. He had slipped in discreetly before they arrived, donning a pair of dark glasses, even in the dim light, and a baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't watching a movie. He was watching them. He saw the little girl's wide eyes, the way she gasped at every twist. He saw the boy's unbridled excitement, his small hand pointing at the screen. He saw the mother's gentle smile as she stroked her son's hair, the father's arm around his daughter, their faces alight with a quiet happiness that transcended the screen. It was exactly what he had hoped for. The genuine, unvarnished joy of a family sharing a simple, magical moment. It felt real, authentic. It was a stark contrast to the manufactured glamour of his own life. The endless cycle of performances, interviews, and public appearances. He rarely got to just be, to simply observe and appreciate. A warmth spread through his chest, a feeling more satisfying than any thunderous applause. He wasn't Elvis Presley the King in this moment. He was just a man quietly witnessing a beautiful thing he had helped create. He saw their faces light up as the spaceship made a daring escape, their shared sigh of relief when the hero prevailed. He heard their hushed murmurs, their delighted laughs. He thought back to his own childhood, to the times his parents had surprised him with a small toy or a trip to the local fair. Those moments, simple as they were, had shaped him. They had taught him about generosity, about love, about the quiet power of making someone else happy. As the film reached its triumphant conclusion, the musical score, soaring, the Miller family cheered, a small yet fervent explosion of joy in the vast theater. They clapped for the characters, for the story, for the pure spectacle of it all. It was a beautiful sound, unfiltered and true. Elvis watched as the credits rolled and the lights in the theater slowly began to come up. The family remained in their seats for a moment, basking in the afterglow. Reluctant to let the magic end, he knew his time to simply observe was coming to a close. Soon the spell would have to be broken, at least partially. But for now, he allowed himself this final, quiet moment of contentment. Watching the Miller family, truly happy, truly touched. It was a sight worth more than all the gold records in the world. As the final credits faded from the screen and the house lights slowly brightened, the Miller family remained in their seats, the soft glow on their faces. The magic of Starbound Odyssey lingered in the air, but it was interwoven with the unique enchantment of their private viewing. Lily stretched a contented sigh escaping her lips. "That was the best movie ever," she declared, her voice still a little dreamy. "And the best way to watch it," Tom nodded vigorously. Already planning his next space adventure, probably in the backyard. "Can we come back tomorrow?" he asked hopefully. Eleanor chuckled, reaching over to squeeze his hand. "Maybe not tomorrow, sweetie, but this was certainly unforgettable." She looked at Arthur, her eyes shining. "Thank you, honey, for making this happen." Arthur smiled back, but his gaze drifted around the vast, empty theater. "I didn't make this happen, Eleanor. Someone else did. Someone incredibly generous." Question of who still hung in the air, a benevolent mystery. Just then a figure appeared by a side door, a polite cough echoing slightly in the quiet space. It was Alex, the young usher who had greeted them. He carried a small, elegantly wrapped gift box. "I hope you enjoyed the film, Millers," Alex said, his smile warm. "Mr. Henderson asked me to present you with this as a small token of our appreciation for your participation in our community program." Eleanor took the box, a little surprised. "Oh, you really didn't have to." "It's our pleasure. And there's one more thing. Mr. Henderson also wanted me to pass on a message directly from the anonymous benefactor who made this possible. He said to tell you, enjoy the show and keep believing in a little bit of magic. And thank you for simply being you." Lily's eyes widened. "That's right," he said. "Just a big fan of families like yours." paused, then almost imperceptibly his gaze flickered towards the projection booth, at the very back of the theater, high above them. He also said something about hoping you enjoyed the popcorn and that he thought the young lady's red bow was a nice touch. Eleanor's hand flew to Lily's hair, with a small red bow set proudly. It was a subtle, almost throwaway comment, but it sent a shiver down Eleanor's spine. It meant the benefactor hadn't just arranged this. They had been here, watching them. Arthur felt it too. He slowly turned his head, his eyes scanning the dark, unlit windows of the projection booth. Had someone been up there, silently observing? The thought was both unsettling and incredibly moving. "Thank you, Alex." Eleanor managed, her voice a little shaky. "Please thank Mr. Henderson and our benefactor. This was truly the most incredible experience." Alex bowed slightly. "My pleasure whenever you're ready. The main exit is straight ahead." He then retreated, disappearing as silently as he had arrived. The family was left alone again, the small gift box in Eleanor's hand and the weight of the anonymous message in the air. Lily, unable to contain her curiosity, carefully unwrapped the gift. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a beautifully bound book. It was an illustrated version of the Starbound Odyssey story, with stunning artwork and behind-the-scenes glimpses. Next to it, there was a small, exquisitely crafted wooden spaceship model, intricately detailed, clearly not a toy. "Wow," Tom breathed, reaching for the spaceship. Lily gasped again. Tucked beneath the book was a single, crisp, brand-new $20 bill, and folded neatly around it, a small, plain white card. On it, in elegant, swirling handwriting, were just 3 words: TCB. What does that mean? Arthur stared at the card. TCB, taking care of business. It was a phrase, a personal motto, famously associated with his eyes snapped to Eleanor's. Her mouth was slightly agape, her eyes wide with sudden, dawning realization. "No," Eleanor whispered, her voice barely audible. "It can't be." Arthur stood up, his gaze fixed on the projection booth again. He took a hesitant step forward, then another, as if drawn by an invisible string. The whisper of the red bowl, the popcorn comment, the subtle glance from Alec. It all clicked into place, an impossible mosaic finally making sense. "Elvis?" Lily asked, sensing the shift in her parents' demeanor. "What about Elvis?" Eleanor looked at the card, then at the wooden spaceship, then back at the empty, echoing theater. The generosity, the theatricality, the absolute secrecy, the immense sum of money required. Who else could it be? Who else would just casually buy out an entire cinema for a random family? For no reason other than a pure act of kindness. The sheer magnitude of the truth was almost too much to comprehend. King of rock and roll, the biggest star in the world, had been here. He had watched them. And he had orchestrated this entire magical, unbelievable experience. Just for them. The whisper of his name hummed in the air, transforming the simple mystery into a breathtaking revelation. The Millers had come for a movie, but they had received something far greater. An encounter with a human heart as grand as the theater itself, hidden behind a veil of fame and mystery. Arthur, propelled by an almost magnetic force, walked towards the back of the theater, his eyes fixed on the projection booth. Eleanor, clutching the small white card, followed him, her heart thumping against her ribs. Lily and Tom, sensing the incredible tension, trailed behind, their eyes wide with curiosity and a growing sense of awe. Arthur reached the door leading to the projection booth, a plain metal door that now seemed to hum with an unseen presence. He hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and knocked gently. No answer. He tried again, a little louder. "Hello, Mr. Presley? Are you in there?" Silence. A profound, almost heavy silence. Adelne felt a pang of disappointment. Had he already left? Was this just a tease, a final flourish to his anonymous act of kindness? Just as Arthur was about to turn away, the door creaked open. Just a sliver. A man stood silhouetted in the dim light, tall and undeniably familiar even with a baseball cap pulled low and dark sunglasses obscuring his eyes. "Is there a problem, folks?" The voice was a low drawl, unmistakable. Rich, with a distinctive southern charm, Lily gasped, putting a hand over her mouth. Tom clutched Eleanor's leg. "Eleanor, 'tis Presley," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. It was you." Elvis slowly pushed the door open wider, revealing himself fully. He still wore the cap and sunglasses, but a small, almost shy smile touched his lips. "Well, I reckon it was. Hope you enjoyed the show." He spoke so casually, as if buying out a movie theater for a family was an everyday occurrence. The Millers stared at him, starstruck, speechless. Lily's idol, the legend, the king standing right in front of them, talking to them. But why? Arthur finally managed the question, tumbling out laden with disbelief and gratitude. "Why us?" Elvis stepped out of the booth, walking a few paces closer, his hands tucked casually into his pockets. "Saw you folks at the box office Saturday. Looked like you really wanted to see this picture. Saw the disappointment. Reminded me a bit of myself when I was a kid. Wanted to give you a proper movie, night something special." He looked directly at Lily. "And you, young lady with the red bow, you looked like you were about to cry. Couldn't have that." He winked. Lily blushed, but a huge smile spread across her face. He had noticed her. Elvis Presley had noticed her. We can't thank you enough, Mr. Presley," Eleanor said, tears now freely flowing down her cheeks. It was truly magical. More than we could ever have dreamed of." "Eleanor's right, sir," Arthur added, extending a hand which Elvis warmly shook. "It means the world to us. This is a memory we'll cherish forever." Elvis's gaze swept over the family, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "Kids still get a kick out of a good movie, huh?" "Absolutely, Mr. Presley," Tom blurted out, gaining a burst of courage. "Starbound Odyssey was awesome. And the popcorn was the best." Elvis chuckled, a rich, warm sound. "Glad to hear it, son. Gotta have good popcorn for a good movie." He then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a few small, glossy photographs. They were of him, looking relaxed and smiling. He quickly signed them. "A little something for you kids. Keep it quiet, though." "All right." "Don't want to cause a fuss." He handed one to Lily, one to Tom. Lily's hands trembled as she took it, staring at the signature. "Elvis Presley, TCB. And for your parents," Elvis said, producing a small, neatly folded wad of cash. "For the other things, for all the hard work, don't tell me. No, please. Just a little something from one family man to another, for taking care of business." He pressed it into Arthur's hand before he could protest. Arthur opened his mouth to refuse, but Elvis held up a hand. "Just think of it as my way of sharing a little of the good fortune I found. It's not about the money. It's about making sure your family gets to have a few more happy moments like this. No strings attached." Eleanor, overwhelmed, could only nod, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't just the money, it was the kindness, the humility, the genuine desire to give. Elvis checked his watch. "Well, I gotta be heading out. Got some folks waiting on me." He offered them one last genuine smile. "It was a real pleasure meeting you, Millers. You're a fine family." Turned and with that iconic swagger disappeared back through the projection booth door, closing it softly behind him. Just like that, he was gone, leaving the Miller family standing in the empty theater, clutching their signed photos, the gift, and the profound, unbelievable memory of their encounter with the king. The silence that followed was different now. It wasn't just the quiet of an empty theater. It was the quiet of a moment, forever etched into their souls. A secret handshake with destiny. The drive home was a blur of excited chatter and stunned silence. Lily and Tom couldn't stop looking at their signed Elvis photos. touching them as if they might vanish. Eleanor and Arthur were still processing the surreal encounter, the warmth of Elvis's hand still lingering in Arthur's. "I can't believe it," Eleanor whispered, shaking her head. "Elvis Presley in our town. And he did all that for us." Arthur gripped the steering wheel, a thoughtful expression on his face. He seemed real, not like the celebrity you see on TV, just a regular man wanting to do something kind. "He was so nice," Lily added, tracing the outline of Elvis's smile on her photo. "He even remembered my red bow." When they got home, the immediate world outside their car still seemed ordinary, unaware of the extraordinary event they had just experienced. They unlocked their front door, stepping back into their familiar, modest house. But something had changed. The house felt different, imbued with a new kind of light. They sat at the kitchen table, the signed photos and the wooden spaceship spread out before them like precious treasures. The money Elvis had given them lay on the table, a significant sum that would ease many of their immediate worries. Perhaps even pay off some lingering bills or finally get that new set of tires for the car. But it wasn't the money that mattered most. It was the gesture, the unexpected act of profound generosity. "We have to keep this secret," Arthur said, looking at his children. "Just like he asked. This is our family's special story." Lily and Tom nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of the promise. This wasn't something to brag about. It was a private miracle to cherish. Over the next few weeks and months, life for the Millers continued its normal rhythm. Arthur worked his long hours. Eleanor took on her sewing jobs. The money Elvis had given them did indeed provide a much-needed buffer, making daily life a little less stressful, a little more comfortable. They finally got those new tires and even managed a small, unexpected trip to the state park. Something they'd dreamed of for years. But more profound than the financial relief was the shift in their perspective. The movie night and the incredible revelation of their benefactor became a touchstone for the Miller family. Whenever things got tough, whenever they felt discouraged, they would remember that Tuesday afternoon. They would remember the grand theater, the private showing, and the unexpected kindness of a legendary figure. Taught them that even in a world full of struggles, there was immense good hidden away, waiting to shine. It reminded them that small acts of kindness, whether given or received, could have an immeasurable impact. For Lily, the experience solidified her belief in magic, not the supernatural kind, but the human kind. She knew now that generosity wasn't just about money. It was about truly seeing someone, understanding their silent hopes, and reaching out. She started looking for small ways to be kind to others, inspired by Elvis's grand gesture. For Tom, it became the foundation of his wildest dreams. If Elvis Presley could show up and make magic happen, then anything was possible. He embraced every adventure with newfound courage, fueled by the memory of Starbound Odyssey and the man who made it possible. And for Eleanor and Arthur, it was a constant reminder of the strength of their family and the power of shared dreams. It affirmed that their efforts, no matter how small, could lead to extraordinary moments. They knew they had been incredibly lucky, chosen at random for an unforgettable encounter, but they also knew they had been chosen for a reason. Meanwhile, a few towns over, Elvis Presley found a quiet satisfaction that was rare in his whirlwind life. The memory of the Miller family's faces, their genuine joy, stayed with him. It was a clear, untainted moment of connection, a reminder of the simple human reasons behind all the fame and fortune. He often thought of them, wondering how they were doing, a silent smile touching his lip. He knew he couldn't do this for everyone, but for that one family, on that one Tuesday, he had used his star power, not for glitz, but for heart. The story of the Miller family's private movie night became a whispered legend in their home, a secret cherished in their hearts. They never told anyone outside their immediate family, honoring Elvis's request, but they knew. And that knowing, that secret understanding of a star's unexpected kindness, made their ordinary lives extraordinary. It was a heartwarming tale, not just of a celebrity and a family, but of shared humanity, unexpected generosity, and the enduring power of a little bit of magic. quietly revealed